Hello and welcome to today's webinar, P-EBT Update and Overview of the Latest Guidance. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce your moderator for today, Etienne Melcher-Philbin, Deputy Director of School and Out-of-School Time Programs at the Food Research and Action Center. Etienne, if you're ready, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thanks, Trevor, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As said, my name is Etienne Melcher-Philbin, and I'm Deputy Director of School and Out-of-School Time Programs at FRAC. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar for an update on P-EBT and an overview of the latest guidance from USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. This webinar is co-hosted by the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, Cacfp Roundtable, Center for Law and Social Policy, Child Care Aware of America, the Education Trust, Feeding America, the Food Research and Action Center, the National CACFP Forum, the National Head Start Association, Share Strength, and 0 to 3. We are thrilled to have the P-EBT from USDA's Food and Nutrition Service with us today to share more about the recently released guidance. This guidance allows states to provide P-EBT benefits to young children in child care and makes a number of program improvements to make it easier for states to implement the program this school year. Joining us today are Cindy Long, Deputy Administrator of Child Nutrition Programs, Ed Harper, Director of the Office of Program Integrity for Child Nutrition Programs, Shelley Pierce, Branch Chief for Retailer Administration, Lynn Rogers-Kupperman, Branch Chief for Program Analysis and Monitoring, and Program Analyst for Child Nutrition Programs, Jana DePorter, Rogelio Carrasco, and Wesley Gaddy. Later in the webinar, Rogelio and Wesley will share more about the new guidance and walk us through a few points in response to common questions from states. Afterwards, the entire team will be available for questions. To put your questions in the queue, please type it in the Q&A box at any time during the presentation. Before we dive into the guidance, I thought it might be helpful to start with a quick overview of P-EBT to make sure everyone is on the same page. P-EBT was created in the Families First Coronavirus Response Act in March 2020 and provides an EBT card to children who are missing school meals due to school closures so they can purchase food at retailers that accept SNAP. All 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the Virgin Islands created and implemented a P-EBT program for school-age children for the 2019-2020 school year. Some states amended their P-EBT plans to provide benefits to school-age children missing meals due to school start delays, closures, or virtual learning for August and September this school year. We were thrilled when Congress included an extension and expansion of P-EBT in the CR passed earlier this fall and to see additional clarity and flexibilities included in the latest COVID relief package. The CR passed earlier this fall extended P-EBT through fiscal year 2021, expanded benefits to young children under 6, allowed states to make simplifying assumptions and use best feasibly available data to support providing benefits given the different ways that schools are operating this school year, and provided funding to fully cover states' costs for administering the program. The Appropriations Act provided additional clarity and flexibilities to make it easier for families to receive benefits and for states to distribute these P-EBT benefits. It allows states, it allows states to provide P-EBT benefits to all children under the age of 6 whose households participate in SNAP when school or child care is closed due to COVID-19. It also allows states to utilize simplifying assumptions and best feasibly available data to determine a school or child care facility status as opened, closed, or operating with a reduced number of days or hours to establish state or regionally based benefit levels, including using state or local public health ordinances, and to identify eligible children as well as eligibility periods. These flexibilities can be used to provide benefits to school age and young children. It also allows state agencies, schools, and local units to receive funding to cover their P-EBT administrative costs. And in one of Biden's first actions in office, he issued an executive order to address hunger. The order increases the P-EBT daily benefit to $6.82 a 16% increase, which includes the value of a snack. The guidance addresses these changes made in the COVID relief bill and in the executive order. And so with that brief overview, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Jerry Henchy, FRAC's Director of Nutrition Policy and Early Childhood Programs, to share a bit more about why P-EBT is so critical to families during this time.
Thank you, Etienne. So good afternoon, everyone. I want to add my welcome to Etienne's. We're so pleased that so many of you have joined us and our co-sponsors for this webinar. We have a broad range of people, over 800 who've joined us today: advocates, parents, early care and education providers, program operators, administrators, educators, food bankers, and many others who want to learn about the new P-EBT expansions and want to spread the word and make sure as many children as possible receive these benefits. So today, as Etienne said, I'm going to briefly cover COVID-19 and food insecurity and the importance of P-EBT, and then I will introduce our excellent speakers. There continues to be alarming rates of food insecurity across the United States during the pandemic. 1 in 5 households is food insecure, and 1 in 4 households that has children is food insecure. This is the finding of numerous surveys, but it's also what all of you on this webinar know, because it's the reality that you see every day. So when we're thinking about families with young children during the pandemic, what do we know? Well, we know that low-income households with young children are more likely to face financial difficulties and material hardship, including food insecurity. We know a greater proportion of Black and Latinx households with young children are experiencing financial and material hardship compared to other families. And what do we know about the impact? Well, food insecurity is associated with a range of serious consequences for health, well-being, development, and learning. And that is why our topic today is so important, because we know that P-EBT helps to reduce food insecurity. We know that from research, and it's one of the important tools that can help children who are facing food hardship during COVID-19. We are very pleased that today we have 2 excellent speakers, Rogelio Crucio and Wesley Gadley. As you heard earlier from Etienne, they're both program analysts at USDA. They're going to give us an overview and update on P-EBT, covering USDA's recently released excellent and very helpful guidance, FAQs, and other materials. We really appreciate USDA's hard work and commitment to PET and to helping children and their families through this pandemic. So we want to thank you, Rogelio and Wesley, for being part of this webinar today. And now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Wes Gaddy with USDA's P-EBT team, and I'll be talking through the updates to the P-EBT guidance along with my colleague Rogelio Carrasco. We'll be covering the recently released guidance for schools and childcare, and then we'll open up the floor to questions from the audience. I want to start by thanking the organizations on this webinar for the role you played and continue to play in state P-EBT plan approval processes. In particular, USDA appreciates the webinars and other events that your organizations have hosted on P-EBT. Your efforts help states share information and best practices with each other to improve P-EBT implementation. As was discussed earlier, we want to highlight the increased P-EBT benefit level affected by the President's executive order on economic relief related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The daily P-EBT benefit for both school children and children in child care is now equal to the combined value of the USDA free reimbursement for a lunch, breakfast, and an after-school snack, increasing the daily benefit by more than 15% to $6.82 per day for children in the contiguous United States. Similarly, the daily benefit was increased to $10.99 for children in Alaska and $7.97 for children in Hawaii, Guam, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and Puerto Rico. This new higher benefit is retroactive back to the beginning of school year 2021. While states are not required to retroactively apply this higher benefit amount, USDA strongly encourages states to do so and will work with states to amend their plans to reflect this new amount. USDA encourages states to issue benefits to children consistent with their schedule, but USDA recognizes that this might not be possible or administratively feasible in all states due to their data systems, resource availability, and the rules governing the transfer of data across state agencies. As a result of the new flexibilities in the December legislation, USDA's latest guidance offers some general examples of how states can make use of the flexibilities to provide benefits to eligible children in both school and child care settings. In all cases, USDA requires that states document their use of these flexibilities in the plans they submit to USDA for review and approval. State P-EBT plans must describe how their proposed approach makes use of the best feasibly available data, their proposed use of any simplifying assumptions, and why alternative approaches supported by more precise data are not administratively feasible. As of yesterday, USDA has approved 15 state agency P-EBT plans for the full school year 2020-2021. Another 9 states have submitted plans. Several states have proposed to issue child-specific P-EBT benefits based on the actual count of virtual days recorded by their school and reported to the state. Others have not been able to precisely calculate benefits and are making use of simplifying assumptions to provide average benefits. It's helpful to think of school children as having 3 types of school schedules: fully in-person, fully virtual, or some mix of in-person and virtual learning days, also known as a hybrid schedule. For states that may not be able to count individual children's virtual learning days in a given month, it may be possible to at least separate children into these 3 broad groups. Once that's done, the task of calculating P-EBT benefits for the fully in-person and fully virtual groups is fairly straightforward. The fully in-person students are not eligible for P-EBT benefits, while the fully virtual students are eligible for benefits for every instructional day in the month. If the state cannot count the actual number of virtual days for the children with mixed or hybrid schedules, they may calculate and issue an average benefit using the best feasibly available data. USDA's new guidance outlines how states might calculate average benefits for children with hybrid schedules. Depending on the availability of data, states may be able to issue average benefits at the school level, grade level within schools, or at a broader level such as school district, a county, or even the state. USDA has already approved a couple of state plans that issue average benefits for children with hybrid schedules. These states outline the source of the data they use to calculate their averages, commit to reassessing their averages at least once every 2 months to account for the evolving nature of schools' operational plans, and importantly, confirm that their averages, whether calculated at the school, district, county, or state level, are a reasonable reflection of actual student schedules in that area. While issuing a common average benefit may be easier for states to explain to families the benefits that differ for every child, average benefits for children that are a poor reflection of their actual schedules will be more difficult to explain. And while averaging benefits for children with hybrid schedules is a simplification that USDA expects many states to pursue, there are other states where collecting any student-level data is just not possible. These states may not be able to separate students into fully in-person, fully virtual, and hybrid schedule groups. In that case, and if it's supported with appropriate data, it could be appropriate to calculate and issue a common benefit to all children in a given school or given grade within a school using the default or predominant learning model. For example, in a school where the default model is 100% virtual instruction, the state may issue a P-EBT benefit for each instructional day to all of the school's eligible children, even if some children attend class in person on an exception basis. Similarly, in schools where the default instructional model includes a mix of in-person and virtual days, the state may choose to issue an average hybrid benefit to all eligible children, despite the fact that some children attend in person every day and others elect a fully virtual schedule. Again, the task is for the state to clearly outline the standards that it will use to determine a school's default or predominant learning model. The state must also explain why these standards are reasonable given the available data and commit to reassessing benefit levels over time. USDA also encourages states to provide a way for families to receive a higher benefit level if they are entitled to it. Given the feedback that we've gotten from states to date, We believe that these flexibilities on the calculation and issuance of common benefits, whether based on averages or most common schedules, will allow every state to put together a cost-effective and operational P-EBT plan for school children. The last thing I'll mention before I turn things over is that USDA is going to begin posting the P-EBT plan submitted by approved states. We hope this assists states and advocates in sharing information and can help states that haven't submitted plans yet to find a model that will work for them. Thank you again for your work to help make P-EBT a success. And with that, I will turn this presentation over to Rogelio Carrasco, who will be covering the child care component.
Thank you very much, Wes. I really appreciate it. My name is Rogelio Carrasco. I'm on the P-EBT team. Like the other members of the P-EBT team, I come from other program areas. I work for SNAP. Wes usually works for CN. So let's talk about childcare. The eligibility requirements for P-EBT's childcare component sound more complicated than they actually are. When combined with the administrative flexibilities granted to states by the P-EBT statute, implementing the childcare component of P-EBT should prove as manageable as implementing P-EBT for school children. However, there's no escaping at least a brief mention of the formal eligibility requirements. During the current public health emergency, a child is eligible for benefits under P-EBT's childcare component if three conditions are met. Those conditions are: one, the child is a member of a household that receives SNAP benefits at any time since October 1st, 2020. Two, the child is enrolled in a covered child care facility. That's a term that has its own rather specific requirements. And three, the child's covered child care facility is closed or has reduced attendance or hours for at least 5 consecutive days, resulting in the child's inability to attend the facility. Or one or more schools in the area of the child care facility or in the area of the child's residence is closed or has reduced attendance or hours for at least 5 consecutive days. Now, the greatest simplification to these standards contained in December's legislative amendment to the P-EBT statute is that all children under the age of 6 are now deemed to be enrolled in a covered child care facility for purposes of P-EBT. Prior to this change, states were justifiably concerned that issuing benefits under P-EBT's child care component would require establishing individual children's enrollment in covered child care centers. That would be a daunting task under normal operations, but is even more so during a pandemic. Unlike schools, child enrollment in a child care center is generally not reported to the state, making it difficult, if not actually impossible, for states to know which children would be eligible for P-EBT. Now, USDA participated in several listenings with states and organizations like yours after the P-EBT childcare component was initially enacted, but before December's simplifying legislative changes. States expressed concern about attempting to gather childcare statistics from state childcare licensing and oversight organizations, or attempting to use data from Cacfp in some way. Hopefully, we can head off some of those concerns today. Now that all children under 6 are assumed to meet the enrollment standard, states are likely to issue the greatest share of P-EBT childcare benefits to children who meet these two standards. One, the child is a SNAP participant and is under the age of 6, and the child lives in the area of a school that is closed or is operating at reduced attendance or at reduced hours due to COVID. Now, it is inevitable that some SNAP participant children under the age of 6 do not live in an area of a closed school or a school operating at reduced attendance or hours, but are actually enrolled in a child care facility that is closed or operating at reduced attendance or hours. States should address this group in their state plans. However, USDA assumes that for most children, the simpler standard will likely apply. Satisfying the requirement that the child's residence or child care center is located in the area of an eligible school can be accomplished through reasonable methods, as described in the state's plan, that make use of the state's best feasibly available data. States may also rely on a state or local ordinance that limits the capacity of child care providers in a given area due to the COVID health emergency. Now, some have asked about SNAP participation as a requirement for P-EBT's child care benefit. This is a statutory requirement. Income eligibility for SNAP benefits is not enough. The child must be participating in SNAP. Others have asked about the effective date of the child care benefit, because the child care component was enacted as part of the October 1 continuing resolution. States may only issue benefits back to October 1, 2020. That is, the child care component is not retroactive to the beginning of the school year. Now, moving on from the eligibility requirements for P-EBT's child care component, the next important step in issuing P-EBT child care benefits is establishing a benefit level. USDA notes in its guidance that states have flexibility here as well, as most states will establish a child's eligibility for the benefit by confirming that the child resides or attends a child care center in the area of a closed school or a school operating at reduced attendance or hours. It makes sense to set a child care benefit level to the average benefit for the school children in the same area. For example, if all schools in an area are closed, the child would be entitled to the full benefit that is provided to children in those schools. If all schools in an area are operating with a hybrid schedule, the child would receive the same hybrid benefit. As previously discussed in the school's context, the state must describe in its P-EBT plan how it will set child care benefit levels, including the data sources the state will use and how the state will monitor and update P-EBT benefit levels as conditions change. Now, moving on from the child care part, I'm going to talk a little bit about EBT and customer service in general. Very briefly, in terms of EBT, the new guidance doesn't change things much. For the most part,
I think we may have lost Rogelio, so I'm going to jump back in and cover the rest of the information that we have. So talking about EBT and customer service, we want to continue to encourage states to stagger issuances and to split large multi-month issuances for reasons of program integrity, maintaining social distance, and not straining the supply chain. As a reminder, staggering is when states issue benefits within an issuance month across multiple days. While splitting issuance is when you have a large amount of benefits to issue, say September through January, which is 5 months, and split that issuance across 2 or more months. So for example, if a state is going to issue benefits for September through January, instead of having one large issuance in February, we'd encourage the state to issue benefits for September through October and February, and for November through December and March. Lastly, we'd like to remind states that many P-EBT participants have never had an EBT card before. So we encourage states to please include all the bullet points that are in the template regarding the use of EBT cards. The last thing that we're going to discuss before we turn it over for questions is administrative costs. I want to mention that the administrative cost provision in the latest amendment to the P-EBT statute allows states to claim full reimbursement of allowable costs. A cost is allowable if it is necessary, reasonable, allocable, and incurred in the development and execution of state P-EBT plans during federal fiscal year 2021. States may claim reimbursement for costs incurred by its SNAP agency, other state agencies that incurred costs in the administration of P-EBT, and local agencies including schools. USDA will work with states as they develop a program and budget summary using the FNS 366A. All P-EBT administrative grants will be provided in accordance with the applicable federal statutes, regulations, and terms and conditions of the federal award. Thank you again for your time and your work in support of P-EBT. We're now ready for some questions from the audience.
Very good, very good. We have a few questions that were pre-submitted before this event. We'd like to read those before reading the live questions. The first question today, how can children enrolled in private schools receive P-EBT?
Hi, Trevor. Thanks so much. This is Jana DePorter, another program analyst with the P-EBT team. So I'm going to start off with some of these questions. So for this first question, the answer is that all children who would have received free or reduced price meals, if not for their school closure or the reduction of attendance or hours due to COVID-19, are eligible to receive P-EBT. Of course, the statute governing P-EBT only extends to schools, whether public or private, that participate in the NSLP. When reviewing state plans, USDA requires that state agencies address how eligible private school students will be served. In states where private schools do not normally report student data to the state's Department of Education or Child Nutrition Agency, states with approved P-EBT plans have created alternate means for private schools to communicate the necessary information to the state. Every state faced this challenge in their spring 2020 P-EBT plan, and every state came up with a solution. And Trevor, I can just say some of the questions and then respond to them. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. Okay. Another question that came in was, can my state issue benefits this year to eligible students who did not get a P-EBT card for last school year? So we think we're asked that what this question is asking is if a state can issue benefits for eligible students who did not receive a P-EBT card for the last school year. USDA will approve limited amendments to school year 1920 P-EBT plans under certain circumstances. For example, USDA will consider amendments that provide households with additional time to provide the address, head of household, and other contact information necessary for the state to create an EBT case file and to match children's names to existing school district lists of children eligible for free or reduced price benefits at the time their schools closed in March 2020. However, USDA will not consider amendments to open or reopen an application process to establish the income eligibility of households in school year 1920. I would refer you to the set of QAs that USDA posted to its website on January 29th. This, I believe, is the first question on that QA. Additionally, students who were not eligible for benefits in the school year 1920 may have become eligible in school year 2021. States must have a process for identifying these newly eligible students and detail that process in their plans. Many school districts did not collect applications at the start of the school year and will only request applications after the state launches its P-EBT program. Accordingly, if a child confirms during the current school year they would be otherwise eligible for NSLP, states and school districts may generally assume eligibility back to the start of the school year. States must describe how they will handle this in their plans. Additionally, this is another question that's found in our QA. I believe it's number 14, and that should provide further clarification. Another question we received is, the state education agency is telling me that we do not have a centralized system with student data to issue the P-EBT benefits. How have other states overcome this barrier? Are there simplified assumptions they can use? So P-EBT was created in response to COVID, so it makes sense that many states don't automatically collect all the information needed to issue P-EBT benefits. Some states have resolved this issue by starting a new data collection from their schools to get the information that they need to issue benefits. USDA understands that this is not possible in all states, and for some, it may not be feasible to collect individual student information or even school-level information. As stated in questions 18 through 20 of our new Q&As, in states where it is not feasible to collect data on each student's virtual learning days, it may be appropriate to set a uniform benefit at the grade level or the school level, for example. A handful of states have proposed, and USDA has approved plans that do exactly this. Another question that we have gotten through the chat is, will families receive benefits on a monthly basis? So the first thing is that all state plans are different. Most states have proposed to do an initial issuance that provides benefits back to the beginning of the school year in 1 or 2 monthly issuances. And then going forward, many states plan to issue benefits after the end of the benefit month, Many are doing a retrospective benefit issuance. However, states are also able to do a prospective benefit issuance, which is limited to 2 months in advance to ensure that the state has the ability to monitor like school operating status and provide benefits consistent with those schedules. There are a number of questions asking about eligibility for P-EBT benefits. So again, to reiterate, for schools, any child who's eligible for a free and reduced price benefit and does not receive meals at the school because the school is closed or has been operating with reduced attendance or hours for at least 5 consecutive days in the current school year is eligible. For childcare, the latest legislation has greatly simplified the eligibility standards. So Congress has told USDA to deem all children under the age of 6 who participate in SNAP as enrolled in a covered child care center. So we are not relying on whether or not the student is enrolled in, say, like a Cacfp center. As long as they are under the age of 6 and they participate in SNAP, they are deemed enrolled in a covered child care center. The next piece is that the child's residence or child care center must be in the area of a school that is closed or operating at reduced attendance or hours due to COVID. As Rogelio said earlier, it is inevitable that there are some SNAP participant children under the age of 6 who do not live in the area of a closed school or a school operating at reduced attendance or hours, but are actually enrolled in a child care facility that is closed or operating at reduced attendance or hours. Those children are still eligible to receive benefits, but it does require more data gathering, and so we assume that most states are going to use the simplifying assumption of figuring out whether or not the child's residence or school is in the area of a school that is closed or operating at reduced attendance or hours. I see one question asking about whether or not there will be a different reimbursement rate for children that are receiving P-EBT benefits through the child care program. And no, they will receive that same $682 per day for every day that they are eligible.
Hey, Jana, this is Ed Harper. I haven't spoken to anyone yet. I want to thank everyone for joining in too. I'm also from USDA. I'll take a couple questions as well. There are a number of questions on eligibility for P-EBT and Head Start. How do those work together? So again, for the children who are not in a school yet, preschool age kids, Head Start or the key to eligibility is participation in SNAP. All kids under age 6, as Jana and Rogelio mentioned earlier, all children under age 6 who are on SNAP are deemed enrolled in a covered child care facility. But SNAP is a requirement for P-EBT. Certainly there's lots of overlap between Head Start and SNAP, but Head Start itself is not a requirement for P-EBT eligibility. Somebody asked whether families will be receiving P-EBT on a monthly basis. Well, this is an interesting question because, right, we're halfway through the school year and states are now getting their plans up and running. So a good deal of the P-EBT benefits will be issued retroactively for the first half of the school year that's already passed. Going forward, exactly how the states will be issuing benefits is a detail that will be worked out in their state plans. The plans, for the most part, that have been submitted to USDA and that USDA has already approved are generally planning to issue benefits soon after the end of the benefit month. So, for example, we're now in February, state plans would generally, the state plans that are already approved, be issuing benefits in March or April for February. But again, those details will be worked out in the state's plans based on, what is feasible to administer. Just like Head Start, there are a number of questions about Cacfp. One of the questions is P-EBT is only applicable to Cacfp participants. who participate in SNAP. Again, as several people have mentioned earlier, the statute included a great simplification in late December to deem all children under age 6 on SNAP to be enrolled in a covered child care facility, which certainly makes it easier to identify children without checking that they're participating in Cacfp or in a child care facility that's eligible for Cacfp participation. Somebody asked how does a CEP school guarantee all students receive the P-EBT? So Community Eligibility Provision School, where all children receive free or reduced price meals under the NSLP. All children are, in fact, as the questioner understands, all children in CEP schools are eligible for P-EBT on days that they are not attending school in person and receiving a meal service at the school. The states are all committed to ensuring that CEP participants are, if in a virtual learning status, are eligible for P-EBT benefits. Somebody does ask if families with multiple children, will they receive multiple cards, one per child, or will they receive a single card for all children in the home? That, again, is something that states will determine based on what's feasible, working with their EBT processor. Some states are grouping children into household units, and some, in an effort to get the benefits out as quickly as possible, will issue individual cards on the child basis. Is the October 1st, 2020, yes. Jana?
I was going to say, there seems to be a little confusion about the SNAP piece. Do want to reiterate that the SNAP participation is only required for the child care piece. For the school piece, it would just, the student would need to be eligible for free or reduced price meals using the normal NSLP eligibility at schools. Just wanted to point that out.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. The child care and the school's benefits for P-EBT have slightly different eligibility requirements. And as Jana points out, the key for the school's benefit is eligibility for the free or reduced price meals under the NSLP requirements. And for the child care component, SNAP eligibility is a requirement. Obviously, SNAP eligibility is the path to free or reduced price eligibility, a path for free or reduced price eligibility in schools. But SNAP eligibility is not a requirement for the school's benefit. It is for the child care benefit.
We've also seen a few questions asking about where people can find state plans. We are in the process of posting state plans, but FNS has a P-EBT website where you will find all of the question and answer documents that we've been talking about today, and then the approval letters for each state that has been approved for P-EBT in school year 1920 and then thus far in school year 2021, and we're working on making those state plans available as well.
And there's a link to that website in this presentation. I think we're a few slides away from that, but that'll be available as part of these slides.
All right, another question we have today. Our state's plan was approved but was submitted before the revision and guidance regarding children under 6. What is the process for amending their plan to include that population?
Well, that's a good question. And, in an effort to speed the delivery of benefits to as many children as possible, states, USDA issued guidance for the schools piece before the child care piece, and states are further along in submitting plans to cover the children in schools than for childcare. The states that have approved schools plans are no doubt working on and about to submit their plans for childcare, and states that haven't yet submitted their schools plans can certainly submit those along with their childcare plans at the same time.
Very good, very good. And when and where will approved states plans be posted online?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so we're starting to post the school year 2021 plans that have been approved so far. At this point, I believe we have 15 plans approved for school year 2021. So those should be posted shortly. But we post them once we approve a state's plan. So it is dependent upon when the state has submitted their plan, and then once we get through the approval process. And I believe, yes, so on this slide that's up right now on the P-EBT resources, that first link is the P-EBT webpage, and that's where you will find the guidance and the approved states and their plans.
And just, to state the obvious, right? The states have developed their own P-EBT websites that are very specific to their state's plans and how they work. And, wading through the formal plan document on USDA's website is certainly a resource for other states developing their plans. For parents, the state's webpage and these other materials here, the FRAC and CBPP sites are a great resource for those just interested in learning about P-EBT, either specific to the state or more generally.
A bit of a related question, merging together two attendees' questions as well. When are states' plans due by, and does each state use a different timeline? So, for instance, will benefits cover from August 2020 to June 21 or 2021 or shorter?
Right. The states, there is no deadline for submitting state plans, and I'm sure most of the states will have their, I'm sure all the states are working on their plans now, those who haven't yet submitted plans to USDA, and that those will come in soon. The program itself runs through the end of September 2021. But depending on when the state's plans are approved and up and running, that dictates obviously when the back benefits will be issued and how many months of prior month benefits from the start of the school year to the present will be included in that back issuance. There were a couple questions on whether the benefit is delivered to the child care provider or to the children. I'm not sure, exactly. I mean, the answer is the benefits go to the children. They go to the families. I'm wondering if there's just some basic misunderstanding about how the P-EBT program operates for childcare. And again, it's a benefit unlike the school benefit. Somebody else had asked about reimbursements, I believe, for schools. Unlike the school meal program, where the reimbursement is to the institution, either the school or the child care provider, and the benefit is the in-kind meal to the child. Here, the benefit is a replacement for that meal. So the benefit is a direct cash benefit, redeemable for food, to the children's families.
Very good. We have another question. Do students who attend K-12 schools have to be participating in SNAP, or is it just kids under 6?
Right. That's just a requirement for the child care component. Children who are enrolled in school, an NSLP participating school, just need to be eligible for free or reduced price meals under the NSLP requirements.
And is this benefit students using the hybrid model, for example, a child who's in a hybrid model, but most of the time school's closed because of COVID?
I'm not sure I understand exactly the question, but the hybrid, children with hybrid schedules are eligible on days that they're not attending school. Again, when Wes was talking about the development of state plans and the use of best feasibly available data, sometimes the data is not available at the child level, and the state plans will issue average benefits for children, particularly those with varying hybrid schedules. So the details of that will be worked out by the states and their plans.
Excellent. And the next question, how will the data be collected for students attending pre-K? I know they did not qualify last year, so I'm curious, this user is curious to know how the data will be collected for them this time.
Right, again, these are questions about how the states will implement their plans. And again, the great concern that a lot of the states had about the child care component have been rendered obsolete by the December legislation that deems all children under age 6 on SNAP to be enrolled in a covered child care facility. Greatly reduces the need for an exchange of data between child care providers or state agencies that run child care programs and the agency that will issue P-EBT benefits.
And will families with multiple children receive multiple cards, one per child, or will they receive a single card for all children in the home?
Right, that's something that the states will decide that works best for them and for their EBT providers. There's states doing that both ways.
Looking at some of these other questions. Are families receiving P-EBT on a monthly basis? And is it only applicable to Cacfp participants who participate in SNAP?
Well, again, the details of the issuance dates and frequency will be determined by the states. And again, because we're halfway through the school year, there'll be a big share of those benefits issued retroactively. And states are typically proposing to issue benefits at least in 2 installments for the previous months that have already passed. And then going forward, what we've seen so far, what USDA has seen so far, the states are proposing to issue benefits soon after each of the next subsequent months ends. So issuing March benefits in April or something along those lines.
Very good. And how does a CEP school guarantee all students receive the P-EBT?
Hi.
Sorry, how does the...
So there's two
go ahead.
There's 2 components to whether or not a child would be eligible for a benefit in the school setting. So the first is whether or not they qualify for free or reduced price meals. So with a CEP school, all students would meet that criteria. The next piece is, did the school close or have reduced attendance or hours for at least 5 consecutive days? Then the students would be eligible for the days that they were not at school and did not receive a meal at school. So it would not be an automatic everyone in CEP gets a full benefit unless that CEP school is a fully virtual school. So it is a 2-part test.
I see a question there. This is Rogelio. I'm back. Sorry for the drop-off earlier. I see a question there where they're asking if the daily $6.82 benefit varies in states where the cost of living is higher. It does in Hawaii and Alaska. Those have different reimbursement rates as a matter of course during the regular child nutrition programs. For the other 48 contiguous states, it's $6.82 across the board.
Someone asked whether families have to apply separately for P-EBT if they already have SNAP. Most states are structuring their programs so parents don't have to apply at all. And that's the goal, right? The goal, and states are doing a great job at this, is to structure programs so that, particularly for schools, children who are free or reduced price certified are getting their benefits automatically.
Good, very good. On behalf of the Food Research and Action Center, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and for your participation. ATN, I'd like to turn the floor over to you for any closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. If you could go back to the last slide on the resources, that would be great. So thank you all for those great questions. They were flooding in, and I hope we were able to answer many of them. And thanks to Wesley, Rogelio, Jana, Ed, and the entire USDA FNS P-EBT team for fielding those questions and all the amazing work you've done to make P-EBT a success. And so before we close, I do briefly want to highlight a few of the resources FRAC has developed. And I know that it had been mentioned before, the USDA P-EBT webpage has, I know people are interested in the plans and who's approved. Definitely check it out for the guidance, the list of approved states, and it sounds like that's where the plans will go as well. And then on FRAC's P-EBT webpage, we have quite a few resources. We actually have a map with all, if a state is approved, we have a link to their P-EBT webpage for more details. As was mentioned during the presentation, every state's P-EBT plan looks different, so wanting to share the details of that and link families as well as partners up with how P-EBT will work in your state. So definitely check out our map linking to those state resources. We also have quite a few resources to ensure that all eligible families are able to access the program. So we've put together a brief outlining strategies that states can implement to reach all children, a communications toolkit that includes sample messaging for school, knowing that school districts are a key messenger for P-EBT, as well as outreach partners. And so that includes a lot of different resources for you to get the word out, including some customizable P-EBT outreach materials. Like I said before, every state's plan is different, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And so these outreach materials that are available in multiple languages, you can customize to your state and really help spread the word to make sure if there is an application that families apply. If there isn't, sharing the details of what families should expect. So definitely take a look there. And I know there were quite a few questions on P-EBT and the young kids, since this is the first time, this is being issued to children under 6 in SNAP households. And so we also have a fact sheet about that on the webpage as well. And then just also wanted to highlight the documentation project we did with the center over this past summer with a lot of different great resources, lessons learned from our states from the last round of implementation that we think can apply to states thinking this round, as well as our P-EBT resource library, where we captured sample communications plans, basically everything on P-EBT nationwide. And so definitely encourage you to check that out, as well as our case studies and state profiles. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we hope you learned more about P-EBT. We will be hosting future webinars, as well as providing additional resources on P-EBT, and look forward to working with all of you to make this a success. So thank you again to our speakers, and thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.
Good, very good, very good. At this point, we will ask that you complete the brief survey that you'll see on your screen as we use that information to help improve future webinars. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you all have a great afternoon.